What's up, pod pals? It's your buddy Adam, and this is Podcasting Business School, the show where I teach you how to love your podcast like a hobby and build it like a business. This is a podcast audit episode with my new pod pal, Vunji from the Perimenopause podcast. Vunji, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited for this.
All right. We talked about it earlier. Jan Ditchfield introduced us. That's always a home run connection. So I'm really excited to help you out. I know you've recently gone through a rebrand. I'm liking the way that things are being rebranded. I've been looking at your podcast feed. It looks like you got some great content, some pretty solid and interesting offers as well. So I think there's a lot of potential here. And I'd like to kick this off by setting a little bit of a goal. So if you and I were to follow up 6 months from now and things have gone extremely well with your podcast and with your business, can you help paint that picture for me? What might that look like?
Well, I think my podcast is I feel like it's actually bringing in those clients that want to work with me. So at the moment, I feel like I'm putting out content. I have no idea who's listening to it and if it's actually providing value. Now, since the rebrand, my downloads have increased significantly, but I just still don't know who's listening. They don't get in touch with me. So I always feel like I'm talking into the void. So I think in 6 months from now, it'd be great to know, people feel like it's a two-way conversation. They can get back to me, but my business, it actually takes my business forward. So it's actually adding value as opposed to feeling like I'm doing this thing for nothing.
Yes. And I know exactly what you're saying because that was like the first 3 years of my podcasting journey is yelling into the void, waiting for the echo to come back and no one listening. I make these, I have a merch shop where I make these shirts that say your mom subscribes to my podcast. And it's kind of a funny thing, but my mom didn't even subscribe to my own podcast in the first 3 years. Like that's how bad it was. So what do you think is the number one roadblock that's keeping you from finding clients via your podcast? You feel like there's anything in particular that we should focus on today?
I think it's probably exposure. So I don't know so I share it on my social media, but beyond that, I don't think there's a lot of exposure of my podcast. I think the rebranding would help the SEO tremendously. But yeah, it's probably the exposure.
Okay, cool. So let's look at a couple of things that I noticed right away that I think will help with gaining the right listenership. Podcast search engine optimization is huge. It is huge, huge, huge. And I'll give you an example that I'm very excited. I think this is the first time I've mentioned it on the show, actually. So I launched a new show last week, and it's before I actually started promoting it last week, it had been live for about a week because I like to test it and make sure it's up on Apple and everything. And just based off of the name of the show, the art, and search engine optimization, I gained $6,000 in clients before I even launched the show. So almost $1,000 per day that it was live without me telling anyone. And that is only because of the art, the name, and the search engine optimization. All the right people were finding it, binging it, and hiring me. So that's how powerful this is. And I know my listeners, they hear me talk about this every week on these podcasts. It's like, he's always talking about SEO and he makes everybody change the name of their show or add stuff to their, but it is so powerful for the right people to be able to find you. Like, let's help your super fans find you, everybody. So a couple quick things. I like the name change to the Perimenopause podcast. I think the word perimenopause is very searchable. Like, I love it, love it, love it. Okay. One thing to consider is what I call a title extension. Yeah. Where you can sneak in a few more searchable terms. So the Perimenopause podcast, advice for or tips for, and then look for like 2 to 3. So I always go tips for X, Y, and Z. So tips for 40 plus females, or conversations on hormone balance, blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. So maybe finding 1, 2, or 3 extra keywords that you could put in there. So just basically like what terms are you thinking your ideal clients would be putting in Apple Podcasts or Spotify to find a show just like yours? So I think that's one thing that would help tremendously. I noticed that your art hasn't updated on Apple Podcasts yet with the new, it still has the old podcast name on it. Have
Right.
you updated that? Are you planning on updating that, or is that in the works?
I probably assumed that it was just going to auto update because it updated on Spotify, but I never checked Apple Podcasts. So
Okay.
it's probably something extra I need to do.
Okay, so probably with that, you'll just want to log into Apple Podcasts directly, and then you just hit. There's like a little refresh feed button or something.
Right.
That's happened to me before when I've rebranded. So hit that, and then it should update,
Okay.
which is nice. Now with your new art, what's that look like? Describe how the new show art looks like specifically.
So it just says the Perimenopause podcast with Vanji and just a photo of myself.
Okay. So it's on if it's on Spotify, I'm gonna look it up real
Yes,
quick so
it is.
I can get eyeballs on it. So
Yeah.
with your art, so comparing like your old art, is it similar to your old art? Like a similar look?
Colors are different
Okay.
colors.
Okay. I'm looking it up on Spotify as we look. So um okay. Okay, so it's very similar. So, okay. So what we want to look at is with your art, you want the words, and specifically the word perimenopause, to be the star of the show.
Right.
So for me, when I'm creating podcast art, whatever word is the star of the show, I want that to span the distance of the square. I want that to be
Mhm.
large, thick font, very visible, and I like it to be a different color than every other
Right.
word that's on the screen. So it really stands out. So I think having perimenopause, thick font across, different color, make it pop. And having, the perimenopause highlighted podcast, and then maybe whatever your title extension is, tips for or conversations about, I would stick that kind of at the bottom with some sort of background color banner behind it so you can see it really
Right.
nice. So an off color banner that's behind it, and you can highlight some words in there as well. And then once that structure's in place, then I would find where there is room. Usually there's like a corner that's open or something like that, or there's some space. That's where you put the image of you. A mistake
Okay.
that a lot of podcasters make is they put their image on there first, and then they make all the words work around a big old picture of them or their face or something.
Yeah.
And like if you're a world famous comedian or actress or something, yes, there's people like you and me that, if I'm on a billboard in Times Square, everybody's like, who's that guy? Who's that sunburned bald guy? I don't know who that is. So I don't ever put my image on any of this stuff because it's not really going to help anything. So I make the words as big as possible because when people search perimenopause, your show pops up. So I want it, but it pops up with 10 or 15 other shows on Apple or Spotify. It's all the searched shows that have those related terms. And we only get one shot at these people. They're not
Yeah.
going to search twice. And they're usually not going to check out more than one of the shows, usually, maybe two, maybe three. So we've got to be ideally that first one that their eyes gravitate towards and go, ooh, this has perimenopause highlighted. It's got tips for and all those relatable terms like, ooh, that's me, that's me, that's me. Bungie gets my first shot basically, and
Yeah.
that's where I'm going to first. And now we got him. So I would look at those, the title extension, tweaking the art just a little bit, and the fact that it hasn't updated on Apple, that gives you an opportunity. Like you're not
Yeah.
changing it again. So I would make a few little tweaks and then reload it up, and I think that will help tremendously. Now,
Yeah.
any questions on that specifically?
No, that's very helpful because I created this new thing and I was like, what am I supposed to create? So I just did the thing, but I always knew there's probably more to it than just creating an image. So
Yeah,
that's very helpful.
yeah. It's kind of like the unthought of portion of search engine optimization. Like the keywords bring them in, but you're still there at the dinner table with 15 other podcasts and you
Yeah.
want them to choose you first. So it's like the Bachelorette, like you want the rose, not the other ones. So I will accept this rose. I've got a really great art, that attracts their eyeballs right to you and you get the first dibs. Okay. So let's talk about making money with this thing. Because I think once you get your ideal listeners, they're going to be ready to rock. And I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of different opportunities for how we can do this. Now, you've got a couple really fun sounding offers. Can you remind me of what those are?
Yeah. So my signature program is a 9-week coaching program called the Hormone Health Academy.
Yep.
I open enrollments to that probably like around 4 times a year. And then I've just launched a new program called the Libido Bootcamp, which is for perimenopausal women who struggle with libido.
Love
And
it.
that's a 5-day course.
I love how specific these are, and like they're in the wheelhouse of who you're trying to talk to. Okay, so the key is we've got some good offers that I think are going to be attractive to your ideal listeners. We've got to work backwards and create stepping stones from that paid offer back to the people that find your podcast. So the first step for me is expert positioning, building expert positioning on the show. And there's a few different ways that we can do that. One of my favorite ways is what we're doing right now. I call these coaching style episodes. So you putting a call to action out to your audience, but honestly, it's at the start, you probably have to grab some current clients or grab some friends, colleagues, whatever, and bring them on for this style of an episode and spend 15 minutes. And you don't like in your situation, you're not going to use their name. You're not going to tag them on social media or anything. Like, it's anonymous. And if I wouldn't do anything with the video necessarily, or just make it so that only you are visible. If you do like an Instagram reel and it's just you talking with the advice or whatever. So let them know they're off camera. They're not going to be shared. It's it can be anonymous, all that, but they're going to get some help from you, which I know this population is very eager to get some help. So they want to feel better. They want to feel like they're their normal selves again and all that stuff. So I love this type of an episode for you because it's the best way to build expert positioning. And this is like my secret weapon for my business is I've got 400 and I released 401, episode 401 today. So I have hundreds of these types of episodes where people can listen. And I just signed up a new client. She's like, I only listen to the podcast audit episodes. I'm like, well, I don't know how I feel about that, but I'm glad you're listening to the podcast audit episodes. And like, she's just like, I've heard you coach and coach and coach. And she's like, I'm just ready to hire you. There's no sales conversation needed. So that's really cool that's working like that. Cause I really don't like sales conversations that much. I'm not that type of person where I'm like, and now let's get down to brass tacks. I'm going to sell you some stuff and let's see how much I can sell you. Like, I'm like, let's just work together and let's get started. So I like this a lot. How do you feel about that concept of maybe creating some content where you're bringing listeners / potential ideal clients onto your show and doing something like what we're doing here?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think it is. I do think it'll be hard to get people because some of these topics are really sensitive, as you would have mentioned already. So women are really shy to reach out for that kind of thing. But I can probably shoulder tap a few people. And then once they get used to how it works, they'll probably have more confidence to reach out.
I agree with that. And again, as you get started, what I would probably suggest doing is grab some previous or current clients and make it almost like a case study or a success study episode and do 3, 4, 5 of those. That's amazing expert positioning. And it's not just a 30-minute testimonial. It's kind of like, what were you dealing with when you first came to me? Here's the game plan that we put in place. How did that go? What are your next set of goals that you want to try to achieve with your health? Here's what I suggest for that. And that way you kind of I guarantee that there will be listeners of your show that are like, wow, I relate to that right there. I'm experiencing those same symptoms. I just got a ton of value out of this. So that's probably where I would start. And then from those episodes, I would mention, and if you're listening in, like, these are my current and previous clients, I'm going to start opening the door for listeners to pop on and do an episode just like this. And we're going to identify the number one pain point you're struggling with your health. I'm going to give you some quick tips that you can implement to start feeling better right away. And you're going to walk away with a great free game plan for 20 minutes or something like that. And then using that call to action, I would put it behind an email wall so it helps you build up your email list. So those people are popping on your email list. That's important because these are super fans. Like, a lot of people are like, I'm not doing this for one email. I'm like, but these are people that are listening to your show and they want to come and interact with you. That's worth 10 emails to me, or 100 emails of just passive email subscribers. So I'm like, these are the gold star people on my email list. So I would put that behind an email wall, build the email list with super fans, make real authentic connections with these people, show off what you do, and release as many of those episodes as possible, as long as you can do it. So I think that's strategy number one. Strategy number two would be include as much testimonial audio across your platform as possible. So my Tuesday episodes for this show for Podcasting Business School, I put a testimonial at the very beginning for every episode. I've been doing that for a while, and I've had clients sign up that are like, the testimonials won me over, man, because like nobody does that. They're all, people talk about how great they are and blah, blah, blah. But if you got everybody else singing your praises, that's a whole different ball game. I had a new client that signed up, and she was like, I can't believe how many in a row you've done and you haven't repeated anybody. She's just like, there's a new one every freaking week. Like, this is impressive. And I'm like, well, thank you. I got a lot of people I'm helping out.
Yeah.
So
that is a great idea.
Yeah. I would get audio, and I use a free website called SpeakPipe, and you can pay for it, but I don't. There's the free version, and I've never run out of space. So I would just, it's really the best if you have a current client as you're kind of in that last week of coaching or whatever, go, hey, I would love to get a little audio clip. Again, in your sense, I wouldn't have them name their name or anything like that. But, I've been working with Bungie for 6 weeks, and I came to her because, and so far, these are the results I've been able to produce. I feel amazing because blah, blah, blah. This is the program I did. You should do it too. And like, that's an amazing little audio snippet. I put it at the beginning. That's the first sound my listeners hear. I'm not putting an ad for mattresses or athletic greens or underwear, or it's not an ad for something I'm selling. It's a testimonial. And then it goes into my intro and we start the show, and it works really, really well. So, and especially in yours, like, the perimenopause situation is so emotional, and like, it's hard and frustrating for these women. So I think giving them little audio bites of hope, of like, wow, Bungie really is helping people with this. And that's inspiring to me. So I think that would be another kind of low hanging fruit that you could implement that. And I think it'll really help you with, again, building those stepping stones towards your offers. So how's that sound? I'll hit the pause button on my motor mouth here.
No, I've got heaps of those already, because I've been asking those to use on social media, so I can tap into my little library already while I get more. So I've never thought of it. It's a great idea.
Outstanding. Good. And use them everywhere. Like, I usually get an audio, and then I'll go, okay, I'm going to create a quote card for Instagram, and you can, just take the audio and put it on some sort of B-roll video and make a reel out of it or whatever. So lots of cool ways to do this. Okay. Then the other stepping stone that we want to look at is some sort of connection or activation moment. So we've got them binge listening to your show. They found you through your SEO. Now they're binge listening. They're getting all that expert positioning, the coaching episodes, the testimonials, and you're really starting to level up every week. Like, this Bungie, man, she's really got some stuff going on here. Then you hit them with a call to action that is, like, there's a few different, like, obviously, like some sort of free challenge, free boot camp. I do a party for my listeners every month that I call the Pod Pals Zoom party. I invite 20 of my listeners to come on the show when we do a community discussion. So anything like that. Obviously I do it, being, both, Jan Ditchfield has both hired me and I've hired her. So she has taught me all her ways of using free challenges and boot camps and things like that. So I'm a big fan of that. And then you can activate those listeners that are ideal potential clients. And all of a sudden we get them into the right offer off the back end of that. So I think those are the stepping stones that I would look at building out. And if you do that and just really play the long game of, okay, I need to have all these stepping stones in place and just keep putting people through this and go and find more people to find my show. And then the expert positioning takes care of itself, the free activator into the paid offer. I really think you'll see success because, I think that's the most frustrating thing as a service provider, that you're kicking butt with your business, and then your podcast is launched and it's taken a lot of work, and the right people aren't finding your show and they're not turning into clients when there are people out there that need your help. That's frustrating. So this is how we fix that. Is that making sense?
a lot of sense. And I really considered a few months ago to give up my podcast, and Jan was like, no, you should not give up your podcast. So I thought it's best to just then learn how to use it well. And I think these 3 things that you've given me is really helpful, a good starting point. And I will be implementing it from my next episode, which is tomorrow.
Outstanding. All right. So I think that is a good amount of homework for you here today.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that we give you a chance to shout out your show, your website. If I know a lot of women listen to this show and they may be able to get some help from somebody like you. So go ahead and take the mic and shout out your business, your website, social, all the good things.
Okay. Thanks, Adam. I feel like we're back. I lost you for a second. So my website, everything is just at my first name, vanji.com will be my website. I'm at Vanji on Instagram and on Facebook. And my podcast is called the Perimenopause podcast. And I'd love to have people there. I'd love to hear DMs from them, what they're struggling with, and so that I can address those things in my podcast and my Instagram reels, etc.
Outstanding. And I'm really excited to see what you do with this. I think there's a ton of potential. So I will be paying close attention. Now, for everybody out there that's listening in, if you would like to do a podcast audit episode, just like my pod pal, Bungie, I would love for you to go to the website, podcastingbusiness.school, get signed up, get on my calendar, and let's connect and let's see what I can do for you. And with that, pod pals, I'm going to send you out into the world, wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. We will see you next time.